Mary was 16 and a half when she had her accident. She suffered a brainstem hemorrhage after being hit. She was in a crosswalk. She was crossing Craig on Pioneer coming home from the park. And the driver did stay there at the scene. And thankfully, paramedics got there pretty quickly and they took her there to the trauma center. On Thursday, Thanksgiving Day that year of 2015, Mary was pronounced brain dead. And the following Saturday, she was taken in for surgery because she was an organ donor. I don't want anyone else to have to lose their child the way I did. She was a junior in high school. Yes, Mary was very much a very silly teenager, very sassy at times teenager. While she was at UMC, they were kind enough to us to not limit the number of visitors or visiting hours for her in the ICU. So there were, kids from her high school coming through, and her friends, and we had recently moved here from California, so we had people coming from California as well, and her room was packed full of people all the time. But the stories that they would tell, they all had a common theme to them, and that was that Mary told me to be myself. Mary told me to be a better person, and don't change who you are for other people. And I was grateful to get those stories. There was also stories like Mary made me give her piggyback rides, or Mary would make me tie her shoes on the bus, things like very silly, very silly. She also loved to ride horses, and she spent a lot of time with that. She loved her skateboard. She loved her brother and sister, very much. Her younger sister is now 17, and her younger brother is 12. They're doing as okay as they can. Her little sister is now older than she was, and that was a hard birthday for her. She should never have to be older than her big sister. It's unfair.
She was like a really good person. She was an angel. I know one really cool thing she did was she helped like an old blind woman finish writing a book, like when she was like 12 or 13. Like she was just like such a good person, and she just like lived to help people, and she was my best friend. I still haven't met anyone else like her.
Her brother now at 12, he's 6 feet tall and clumsy, and she never got to see him grow. They had a special relationship. She was very protective of him. He was a little squirt when she died.
We were like the same person. I was her clone. People would say that, and it's kind of true. Same exact stuff. So yeah, we would listen to music together on the hammock outside. We would play Dark Souls 3 on PlayStation. She taught me how to ride a skateboard, so Um, I think that it's a very special relationship that not a lot of people have with their older siblings, you know. 'Cause a lot of people see their older siblings like their arch enemy, but I think they should value it until they lose it, you know.
If I could say anything, I would say come home. But you've made me very proud with your choice to always serve people. And even, you know, your last act was to give life to people you never met. Every day of my life, I'm proud of you. And I miss you.
Road fatalities happen so fast that traumatic loss, that you're completely unprepared for it. Especially if it's a child, it's just harder to get over.
Please slow down, pay attention to your surroundings, try not to be that distracted driver that's looking at their cell phone or answering a text when you're driving, you know, across town for 10 minutes. It can wait till you get to wherever it is that you're going, and just pay attention. This is a very heavily traveled corridor with pedestrians, and so anytime you're out in the valley and you know you're getting in one of our high density areas, you really need to pay attention. And then also for the pedestrians, also, you know, just because you see the car coming towards you doesn't mean they see you coming towards them. So again, it's everybody's responsibility to look out for one another.
We had a routine that we did every morning. I would always ask him if he had his phone, and he'd say right here, and then I'd say, do you have your keys? And he'd say right here, and he'd pull on his lanyard. And then I would say, do you have your cuteness? And he would always say right here. And then I would tell him I love him and give him a kiss and a hug, and I told him to be safe, and he left for school that day. My daughter was home, and she called to see where we were, and then she called a little bit later, and she was screaming that Johnny had been hit by a car. And while we were on the road, Emily called. She was there when they were loading Johnny up in the ambulance and trying to get his heart to start beating again. And she called screaming that they couldn't get his heart to beat. Johnny and his friends had been coming home from school, and they crossed just shy of the crosswalk. And they were on the median, him and two friends, and two cars stopped. It was a 3-lane road. 2 cars stopped and waved for him and his friends to go. So they went. Two of the 3 boys went. In the 3rd lane came another car that saw them go from the median but couldn't stop in time. He hit both of the boys. He killed my son instantly. When he hit him, he was gone. I don't think any parent expects to lose their child, especially not at 12. He was my baby. He was my only son. He has 2 sisters. One is 27 and one is 19. He was kind of the glue that held us all together and brought laughter and just this sunshine to the house, and it's gone now. He was just this incredible kid who was, well, he was in the gifted and talented program. He's extremely intelligent, but he was so kind and he was funny, and he was so fun to hang around with because he was great. He was my best friend. He wanted to be an engineer, and he wanted to bring water to places that couldn't get water. And he would say, and this was before he turned 12, so he's 11 years old, and he's like, Mom, there's got to be a way, but people can't make money at it, so they won't do it. But I want to do that. I want to bring water to places because there's people that die because they can't get clean water. His friends and all the kids that saw it happen, they have to live with this vision in their head. And there's nothing that will ever take it away from them watching their friend, you know, be hit and killed. And I don't think it's something that any of us will be able to really put behind us or forget. And it didn't have to happen. They had a candlelight vigil at the park across the street from where he was hit. And all the kids would come up to me and they would hug me and say things about Johnny. And I remember these 4 little girls came up to me and said, Johnny was nice, and not everybody was nice. They did that where they buy a star for him in his name. If you take the top of the Big Dipper and go down, that's his star. What gives me courage is the hope that I saved somebody's life. That's what gives me the courage. And Johnny would want me to do this. I would tell him how much I miss him. Oh God, I miss him so much. If he were here, I would tell him that my life will never have the joy that it had, that he brought into my life just by being himself. And I would tell him that I will try to find happiness in life because I know he'd want me to be happy. But I would also tell him how proud I am that he's my son.
There's always things that you have to do as the human, especially as the pedestrian. So we want all the pedestrians to understand you have to pay 100% attention. Walking on any street, crossing any street, for sure. That you watch for every car, those right-hand turners, those red light runners, because they're going to take your life if you're not watching for them. And as a driver, your need to go fast, your need to get somewhere in 15 minutes when in reality it takes 30 minutes, you're putting lives at risk. And everyone needs to do the right thing and help us reach 0 fatalities.
Don't look at your cell phone when you're crossing the crosswalk. You know, look up for that 10-15 seconds it takes you to get across the street. It could save your life. You know, pay attention to your surroundings. And like you said, it's always important to make eye contact with the driver in the car. I know a lot of people are uncomfortable looking at people, but it's for your safety. And just, you know, make sure that they see you. And don't just assume that because, you know, you've got the white sign to cross a crosswalk that, you know, people are paying attention to that, because as we know that, you know, not everyone pays attention when they're crossing an intersection.
It was February 13th, 2013. Him and his friend were doing yard work and doing stuff at the house. They went up to go get a Slurpee. He told me he loved me as he left. His friend was on a skateboard and he ran. Like I said, he was a tall guy. And so when they were heading back, his Flamingo being a three-way each way, there was an SUV in front of his friend skateboarded right past. And so my son, assuming there was no cars that his friend got across, he followed. And behind that van, the SUV was a minivan that he ran directly into. So the car did not hit him, but he hit the car. You know, they had already been working on him probably 6-7 hours. And he said, you know, called us back, you know, and he said he's going to make it. It's going to be a long recovery. The least of his problems was a crushed knee. He was bleeding from the liver and his heart was bruised. So they had stopped the bleeding of the liver and they were just keeping him stabilized, you know, with his heart. And so they couldn't give him pain medication. They just gave him amnesia medicine. So they let us come see him, and he was very wide awake and alive. He squeezed my hand, and about an hour later, the doctor came out and said he didn't make it. Oh, he was just larger than life, just funny and great at sports.
Jimmy had an amazing spirit. So we did a lot of stuff together, backpacking. When I got him his first skateboard, he was into speed skating for a while. So I went through basketball with him, all that.
He and I had a really interesting relationship. We were super close when I was little. He used to take me out skateboarding all the time. He used to ask me what I wanted to be when I grew up, and I told him a professional skateboarder because I just wanted to make him proud. I looked up to him a lot, definitely. He had a big influence on a lot of people, and he was just one of those people that drew people to him.
It tears up a family. It really does. James was my firstborn. You know, I had him when I was 18. My heart is broke. Not having Jimmy here, it'd never be the same. His cousin that was really close ended up killing himself directly after that, within 2 weeks. The younger sister took it harder. She cut her wrist all the way up to there within 2 days, so it affected her tremendously.
Alina attempted suicide. So it doesn't get any worse. You don't find a deeper place in the despair pit, except that's the deepest place you can go. And she, at the time, he died when she was 16, and I don't think she's ever gonna get over it, frankly.
I kind of shut it out for a long time. I dealt with it like probably 2 or 3 years later when I was already moved out of town and kind of just dealt with it on my own. I don't think I really fully processed it when it happened. It definitely, I still felt a lot of grief at the time, but it wasn't like the full weight of the situation. It didn't really hit me till later on, and then I processed it then. And it's hard because it kind of makes you regret every time you fought with them and every time you didn't say I love you or give them a hug.
If we can save one other child or somebody's son or brother or mother, it's a great thing.
Of course, I would tell him how much we love him and miss him. But I think I would tell him what an impact he had on so many people's lives.
Miss him and love him very much.
I hope that he knows that I loved him. And that I wish he was here to see how well my parents are doing. And be able to meet my niece.
Just be aware of the people around you. When you're driving on the street, pretend the people crossing in front of you are your relatives. Pretend it's your mother. Pretend it's your brother or sister. And maybe you'll drive a little more carefully. That's all we ask.
Whether it was 5 feet from a crosswalk, 2 blocks from a crosswalk, or in the crosswalk, none of those moms feel any better than the other. Their children died in completely different ways, but the message is their children died. And the other message is that the people who hit them are also living with something terrible. And that's the other forgotten person in this equation. So we do a lot of things that make it unsafe for pedestrians, but we also do a lot of things that make it dangerous for you as a driver.
I'm the mother of Johnny Smith, who was the boy who was hit and killed on March 25th by Wet n Wild. Lay your template down, have somebody hold and somebody else mark, and go to the next spot. I think it might have been the 41st pedestrian fatality last night in Clark County this year. We were doing so well, and now we've had 2 in 2 days and 3 in the last week. So this is the time of year, and that's why we're doing this, and that's why your participation is so important.
It's got to be this intersection on the opposite side, right?
So those vehicles will block the lane, and volunteers will do chalk outline in the street wherever a pedestrian has died in the outside lane, no matter where it happened, so that they're all uniform.
Get Mary's picture in the picture.
Calling more attention to pedestrians that have died all over our city. And there'll be places in town where you're far more likely to see numerous chalk outlines. We're doing all of 2018 and 2019 to date.
The chalk outlines that we did, it was a very emotional experience, even just leading up to it, getting everybody prepared to be able to do that. And I think Garen was the most concerned. He was able to recognize the importance of what we were doing and, just reach that goal that we help prevent some future tragedies for other people.
People need to know that this happens, that kids die every month from reckless drivers. People should be more aware. So like another 12-year-old won't die from just crossing the street.
It brought back a lot of memories, but in return, I hope that it brings awareness to, to the public, that pedestrians, are getting hit.
What was going through my mind was my thoughts of my son lying on the ground, and it hit me really hard. It's something I have a tough time processing, trying to, and for a long time, it kept me up at night. I would just keep seeing Johnny get hit by a car over and over again. Johnny's chalk outline is still there. It hasn't faded. And it kind of brought it back, a visual of my little boy on the pavement. And it was just me trying to, I guess, come to terms with that. And I don't think that I ever will come to terms with that. It was important for me because I want to raise awareness of something that's so preventable that people need to learn that a car may not stop for them, and a body versus a car, the car is always going to win. The Chalk Outline program, it gave people a visual on just how many people have died by getting hit by a car, and I wanted to help raise awareness, and if it makes one driver more cautious or one pedestrian more cautious and saves their life, then it's a success. I need his death to mean something, that it maybe saves somebody's life so that another mother doesn't go through what I'm going through now.
The true effect of those 91 lives that we memorialized, the pain represented is amazing. Other people reached out and said, "Can we paint my spot?" We could have painted thousands of spots.